Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Source. I got absolutely crushed today, man. What a terrible MLB Monday. I exaggerated in the tweet. I was in a bad mood. I said I've been getting my face kicked in for 3 straight days. We actually had a winning day yesterday. We had a winning Sunday. So it's 2 of the last 3 days. I was just in a bad mood and tweeting all pissed off. Sorry about that. Update. So the Giants just came back and won in the 10th inning. That was the top bet. My bad for being so negative. I don't know why. I was just in a bad mood. Actually, my 3 favorite bets tonight were Giants 1, D-backs 1, and then the Cubs Pirates over, which lost by a run. In fact, it should have hit. So I don't know. My bad. I was having a moment, but that win just put the win back in my sails. So let's get into today.
Welcome to the Source. The Source. Hey, get the Source.
First up, Kansas City at Detroit. Daniel Lynch is pitching against Michael Lorenzen. Tigers open up as a slight favorite here, -120. Total opens up at 9. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and of course, it's a lean on the Tigers. 4-1 Detroit after 5 innings. Final score 7-2 Detroit. Well, obviously, we should be looking to fade the Royals at any possible opportunity. Let's look at Daniel Lynch's production over his 4 starts on the season. You can see on his chart that the last start at home against the Reds was absolutely terrible. ERA and FIP both at 9 or higher. But if you look at his FIP from the first 3 starts, they're actually not that bad. Those numbers indicate that his start against the Rockies was a bit unlucky. I personally don't think Daniel Lynch is a complete blind fade at this point. He's pitching against a Tigers lineup that has weirdly good numbers against lefties recently. Check this out. In the last 14 days, 3rd in WRC+, 3rd in OPS, 2nd in slugging percentage. We're talking about the Tigers here. Now, to be fair, Detroit's only had 57 plate appearances against lefties in that span, so we're not looking at the biggest sample size. In fact, the Tigers have only seen 1 lefty starter since June 1st. It was Dylan Dodd last week, and they absolutely hit the shit out of him. 6 hits, 5 earned runs, and just 4 innings of work. So despite the Tigers having excellent numbers against left-handed pitching recently, I don't know if I'm necessarily sold on them hitting Daniel Lynch up. In fact, I think there's a solid chance Daniel Lynch throws a good game here. On the other side, we've got Michael Lorenzen pitching, and I like Lorenzen. I've said it a number of times. I especially like him at home, and I know that sounds insane to say right now because he's coming off back-to-back bad home starts. I mean, he got rocked at home in his last 2 starts. And looking at this chart of his production is definitely a bit concerning. You can see 3 of his last 4 starts have been absolutely terrible, but here's the thing. The last 2 games, the 2 home starts I was referring to, they were against Atlanta and Arizona. That's 2 of the hottest lineups in baseball. I'm not going to kill the guy for getting hit up by the D-backs and the Braves right now. They're both hitting the shit out of the ball. Now, you may be looking at this chart and eyeing up that Kansas City start. Yes, he did get hit up by the Royals. Let's pull up his numbers from that game. No doubt, the Royals bats got to this dude. But A, that was on the road in Kansas City. I just got done saying he's more reliable at home. B, Kansas City had both Pasquantino and Michael Massey in the lineup back then. Both of them are now on the IL. And C, it's the Royals. If there's one lineup in baseball that you can count on somebody getting a bounce back and getting their revenge on in a start, it's the Kansas City Royals. And it's not like KC's putting up scary numbers against right-handed pitching. I mean, yes, I guess they're a little bit better than their numbers against lefties because they've been terrible against lefties, but 25th in OPS and 25th in WRC+, that definitely isn't threatening. I like Michael Lorenzen to deal in this spot a lot. So betting-wise, there's definitely a few different ways to play these angles. You can go Tigers money line and lay the big juice. You could also take the first 5 under 4.5 if you like the Daniel Lynch angle I was talking about. You could also go Kansas City team total under. You never really go wrong with that. Personally, I think my favorite bet here is Detroit first 5 -1/2 run at -115. That's probably what I'm going to end up doing next game. Orioles at Rays. Kyle Bradish pitching against Tyler Glasnow. Rays open up as -165 favorites. Total opens up at 7.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. We got a slight lean on Tampa, very slight. We're looking at 3-2 Rays after 5 innings. Final score 5-4 Rays. So we got Kyle Bradish making a road start in this one. Here are his numbers on the road so far this season. Not terrible looking, right? 4.60 ERA, could be better, but a 3.43 FIP looks solid. I mean, these aren't great, but they're not absolutely terrible at all. But if you spread out that same data on a timeline like this, the dude's production in these road starts is just heading in the wrong direction. That first start against Texas all the way to the left, he only pitched 1 2/3 innings in that game. He left with an injury. Then he had a great start in Washington. His first true road start, he pitched great. but look at what's been going on since then. I mean, all these games, ERA sitting around 6. Sure, the FIP indicates that he had some bad luck in the Giants start, but as a whole, I don't trust this dude, Kyle Bradish, on the road right now at all. Now he's going into Tampa, which has been one of the toughest ballparks for opposing starting pitchers all season. And look at the Rays bats lifetime against Kyle Bradish. They're hitting 387 off him with a 710 slugging percentage. Are you crazy? 710? 1116 OPS. This lineup has definitely given Bradish a lot of problems in his young 2-year career. Here are Bradish's numbers in those 2 career starts against Tampa. Both of them were at home in Baltimore. He's actually never pitched in this ballpark before, and he got completely rocked in both games, and I mean rocked. 10.24 ERA, 1.97 whip. Really doesn't give me a ton of hope back in Baltimore here. So I think all signs point to Tampa Bay hitting up Kyle Bradish in this spot. But now let's get to the bad news for the Rays. The Baltimore Orioles bats are no longer cold. Look at this chart here. So the left side is the Orioles bats against righties from May 22nd to June 4th. So that's the 2-week segment before the last 2 weeks. So you can see 21st in OPS, 21st in WRC+. Baltimore's lineup during that period was certainly not scaring anyone. Now look over at the right side. This is the last 2 weeks, the last 14 days against right-handed pitching. Orioles are starting to hit again. 6th in OPS, 5th in WRC+. Baltimore has, under the radar, secretly started hitting righties again. And to be honest, I really don't know what my thoughts are on Tyler Glasnow yet. Obviously, if he's back to his 2021 form, I'm down to bet this guy every single week. But his last start against Oakland wasn't good. FIP up close to 6. And the start before that against the Rangers, sure, it looked good on paper, but look at the FIP. It's up around 5. Makes me nervous to back this guy against a Baltimore lineup that's showing signs of life. I know with this pitching matchup, it seems like Tampa Bay first 5 minus a half run is the play. They're pricing that at minus 125, indicating that it's probably got a high hit rate. But personally, I'm going to go first 5 over in this one at 4.5. You can get it at minus 105. I think Baltimore's going to grab 2 or more runs off Tyler Glasnow, and I think you can count on Tampa to get at least 2 off of Kyle Bradish. So give me the first 5 over 4.5 next game. Braves at Phillies. Spencer Strider pitching against Ranger Suarez. Atlanta opens up as minus 150 favorites. Total opens up at 8.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we're looking at a deadlock 3-3 tie through 5 innings. Final score 6-4 Atlanta. So Spencer Strider is going through it right now, man. I mean, through 5 starts, he was absolutely cruising it. A 1.80 ERA, 1.97 WOBA, and a 1.64 FIP. That's elite. He was on fire to start this season. But over the last nine starts, he's kind of collapsing here. Those numbers skyrocket to a 5.55 ERA, a 2.0 home runs per 9, and a 4.36 FIP. So my initial thought when I saw this matchup was, oh, yo, we gotta fade Strider here and take the plus money price tag on the red hot Phillies. But hold on a second, because Spencer Strider has dominated this Phillies lineup over the course of his career, dating back to last season. Through 5 appearances, Spencer Strider is a perfect 5-0 with a 1.65 ERA and an 0.62 WHIP against the Phillies. He has owned this lineup. Look at the current Phillies lineup combined numbers lifetime against Strider. They're batting 120 with a 481 OPS and over a 39% strikeout rate. That's through 84 plate appearances. And while Spencer Strider, when he pitches, he's almost always priced in the minus 200s. We're getting him at a nice minus 140 price. So all of a sudden, that's starting to look kind of appetizing. But we can't handicap this game without mentioning how hot the Phillies have been. I mean, they're 13-2 in their last 15 games. Bats are waking up. In the last 7 days, they're 10th in WRC+, 8th in WOBA, 7th in average, versus right into pitching. We've cashed a few bets on the Phillies. The Phillies are definitely hot. I'm not trying to take that away from them. And you could say almost the exact opposite thing that we said about Spencer Strider. We can say that the exact opposite about Ranger Suarez. He started off the season terribly. Through his first 3 starts, he had a 9.82 ERA, a 4.18 WOBA, and a 200 WHIP. What do I always say? Once you get a WHIP 2 or above, it's time to start looking at the minor leagues. He was terrible, but his FIP was at 3.14, so we did keep saying positive regression was around the corner for him, and it came in a major way because since those first 3 starts, he's been dominant. Over his last 4 starts, he's rocking a 1.35 ERA and a 1.05 WHIP and a 2.90 FIP. He's scorching hot right now. But we're looking at a bit of a rock and a hard place here when it comes to Ranger Suarez, because as hot as he's been, has he been hot as the Atlanta Braves are against left-handed pitching? Because I would have to say no. The last 8 lefty starters to face the Braves through 39 in the 3rd innings pitched, a 9.38 ERA and a 1.83 WHIP, 3.2 home runs per 9. I mean, the Braves have owned lefties this whole season. On the season, they're first in WRC plus, second in isolated power, third in average. And this game's being played in Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. Ranger Suarez has always been a bit more vulnerable at home. That's dating back to last year. If you look at his numbers from last year on the road, he had a nice 2.98 ERA and a 1.2 whip. But his 16 starts at home, numbers jump to a 4.71 ERA and a 1.52 whip. So this is Ranger Suarez is a guy I like to back on the road more so than him at home. And then if we look at the bullpens, Atlanta has the clear-cut advantage here. I mean, look at the numbers over the last 14 days. Atlanta sits at 3rd in ERA, 6th in WOBA, 3rd in FIP. Phillies in that same span, 28th in ERA, 28th in WOBA, 27th in FIP. So yeah, huge bullpen edge in favor of the Braves. I can't believe I'm considering backing Spencer Strider the way he's been pitching against Ranger Suarez the way he's been pitching and fading this Phillies team who's been red hot. But I believe it's a great spot for Atlanta. I think I'm down to lay the juice at -140. I may even take Atlanta -1.5 at +120. I'd say I'm definitely going to be on the Braves here. I'll let you know on the live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time, next game. Blue Jays at Marlins. Yusei Kikuchi pitching against Yuri Perez. Toronto opens up as a slight favorite here, -120. Total opens up at 8. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we're looking at 4-2 Marlins after 5 innings. Final score 6-4 Marlins. So I messed up here. I started recording and realized that I accidentally skipped this game. So I have no notes for it. I'll definitely have it all ready and capped out, ready for the live show at 4 p.m. That's my bad. Usually I'm pretty good at keeping this stuff organized, but with just a lapse on our part, we skipped it by accident. So 4 p.m. I'll have a pick for this game next. Mariners at Yankees. George Kirby pitching against Garrett Cole. Nice pitching matchup here. Yanks open up as slight favorites at home, -120. Total opens up at 8. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we got a deadlock even tie here. 2-2 after 5 innings. Final, or 9 inning score, I should say, 3-3. So like I said, Garrett Cole's on the mound for the Yanks, and it looks like he got out of that little rough patch he was in. You can see on this chart here, he had a 5-game stretch where his FIP was 6 or higher in 4 out of 5 starts. But if you look at his last 3 starts on the chart, at Dodgers, home against the Red Sox, and at Mets, so not even the easiest stretch of schedule here. Looks like he got his shit together. Now he gets a home start against a Seattle lineup that's really tough to get a read on right now. I mean, here are their numbers from the last 14 days. 17th in OPS, 13th in WRC+, pretty middle of the pack. But they had a few days stretch where it looked like the Mariners bats were going to get red hot. But then the last 4 games, they followed that up. They had that nice little stretch, and they followed it up by scoring 12 runs in the last 4 games. So not exactly explosive. And you can see here, the Mariners bats don't really have great looking career numbers against Garrett Cole. Just a 206 average and a 655 OPS, I'm sorry. But a lot of those at bats, to be fair, came against Garrett Cole when he was pitching for Houston in the same division. Garrett Cole has made 2 starts against the Mariners as a Yankee. They were both last season. And check this out. This just couldn't be more night and day. The second start was in Seattle. He completely blanked them. But the first start in Yankee Stadium, he got rocked. 6 innings pitched, 7 hits, 6 earned runs. Mariners won that game 7-3. Now, like I said, he bounced back and he pitched against the Mariners just a week later in Seattle and blanked them, shut them down. Do I think that's enough evidence to predict a Seattle Mariners explosion against Garrett Cole here? No. But I thought it was interesting enough to mention in the video. To be honest, I think it's safe to count on Garrett Cole to pitch a pretty good game here. I mean, maybe Seattle grabs a run or 2 off him, but he's been pretty good lately, so I think I can count on Garrett Cole. My concern with the Yankees is not Garrett Cole. My concern is this offense, because have you seen the Yankees bats recently? Here are their numbers on the last 14 days. They are dead last in OPS, 30th, dead last. Also dead last in WRC+. I think you can straight up say the Yankees are the coldest lineup in Major League Baseball. The total is 3-7 to the under in the last 10 Yankee games. Yanks are 3-7 to their team total under in their last 10 games. This team is just not hitting. So there's no way they'll hit off George Kirby here, right? Well, actually, there is a glimmer of hope here for the Yankees, because if you look at George Kirby's road start, or his numbers from his last 2 road starts, they're not good at all. He's 0-2 with a 6.75 ERA and a 1.69 whip. That's in his last 2 road starts. Now, to be fair to Kirby, those starts were at Atlanta and at San Diego. Braves are arguably the hottest lineup in baseball, and San Diego's heating up as well, so definitely a couple of tough spots there. Also, to be fair to George Kirby, if you look at all his road starts on this chart here, look at the FIP numbers. That's the white line, the white dots. You can see that the Padres game was a crazy outlier. The ERA was way above the FIP. Basically, what I'm saying is I don't think those two road starts at Atlanta and at San Diego are cause for too much concern. Straight up at plus money, I don't get how we don't bet Seattle here. I don't have a ton of faith in them hitting Garrett Cole, but every other aspect of the game, Mariners bullpen is rested again, and I love that bullpen with Munoz healthy in it. So at plus 120, I'm all over the Mariners. Give me Seattle money line next game. Cubs at Pirates. Marcus Stroman pitching against Johan Oviedo. Cubs open up as minus 150 favorites. Total opens up at 8. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet here. Not much of a lean here. It's 1-1 after 5 innings with a slight lean to the Cubs. 9 innings score, 3-3, slight lean to the Cubs again. I don't know if we're dealing with the biggest trap in the history of Major League Baseball wagering, but I don't get this line. I'm so pissed off at the Pirates right now. I can't believe them. I bet the over at 9, and I had it as a top bet last night. Cubs win the game 8-0. Pirates got shut out. They had the bases loaded twice. I think they had 10 or 11 guys left on base. Just disgusting. I can't even look at the Pirates right now. You got Marcus Stroman on the mound. Like I said, is this the hugest trap of all time? Whatever. I don't care. The most square bets on the board have been cashing the last couple days. So give me Cubs money line at minus 126. I already bet this for $250. That's more than a unit for me in MLB. That's about 1.25 units. So I already bet this on FanDuel. Next game. Cardinals at Nationals. Jordan Montgomery pitching against Mackenzie Gore. Cards open up as pretty heavy favorites here, minus 195. Total opens up at 9. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet in another game where we're not getting much of a lean here. 2-2 after 5 innings, 9 innings score, 4-4. Well, it's St. Louis against the lefty, so I should probably just stop talking and go bet the Nats right now. I mean, look at the Cardinals' recent numbers against left-handed pitching. This is terrible. Over the last 14 days, this is like some of the worst shit I've ever seen. Just a 159 average, 159 slugging percentage. If you're wondering how those two are the same, that means they have 0 extra base hits. Not a single one. 396 OPS and just a 20 WRC plus. If you don't know how WRC plus works, 100 WRC plus means exactly average. So if you're at a 20, that means you're producing at 80% less than average. 80% less than the average baseball team right now. Truly disgusting. The last 3 lefty starters to pitch against the Cardinals: Rich Hill, 6 2/3 innings, 1 earned run. Martin Perez, 7 full innings, 0 earned runs. And Andrew Abbott, what an ace, right? Andrew Abbott, 5 2/3 innings, 0 earned runs. This St. Louis Cardinals team has gone beyond cold against lefties. There's no word to even describe how cold they are. So this should be a nice little spot for Mackenzie Gore at home here. Mackenzie Gore coming off a much-needed gem in Houston. It was badly needed. You can see his last 10 starts on the chart here. A lot of high numbers. I will say if you isolate it to just his FIP numbers, he's only got 3 games in the last 10 that are above 4. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Mackenzie Gore is a bet on pitcher right now at all. But I will say those FIP numbers indicate that he's probably not pitching nearly as bad as those stats indicate. Combine that with the Cardinals numbers against lefties, and I think there's a good chance Mackenzie Gore is going to pitch a good game here. But before I go ahead and hammer the Nats money line, we first got to look at Jordan Montgomery stuff, because this dude seems to have figured it out. He had a terrible May, but his numbers in June are looking good. He's back to producing at the level he was to start the season off. Here are Montgomery's numbers from his 3 starts in June so far: a 2.00 ERA, 2.58 WOBA, and a 100 WHIP, 2.66 FIP too. He's truly pitching well right now. And against the Nats lineup, who isn't particularly hitting lefties right now, either, they're not quite as bad as St. Louis, obviously. But in the last 14 days, 19th in OPS, 20th in WRC+. With the way Jordan's pitching, who's to say Montgomery doesn't throw a gem right back on him? So I'm thinking I like Washington, and I'm thinking I like the under. But then I glanced at the bullpen numbers here, and I just don't know if I could pull the trigger. As you can see, in the last 14 days, both these teams are in the bottom half of the league in basically every single category as far as bullpens go. So I don't know if I want anything to do with an under as far as the full games go. But I'm down to rock with the first 5 under here. You can get it at 5 at minus 125 right now. I like that. And as far as picking a side, I probably will end up betting the Nats at that plus 135. Not 100% sure if I'm there yet. I want to see what the line does in the morning. But so as of right now, let's say first 5 under 5 and Washington money line at plus 135. Next game. Rockies at Reds. Kyle Freeland pitching against Ben Lively. Cincinnati opens up as solid favorites here, minus 150. Total opens up at 9.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we got a solid lean on Cincinnati here. 4-2 Reds after 5 innings. Final score 6-4 Reds. So as I'm sure you saw, I took a shot on the on the Rockies last night, and I had it. Man, I had it. They were down 1 run. It was 5-4. 9th inning. They had runners on first and third. Nobody out. I had it. 2 strikeouts in a row, and then they end up losing. Should have been a nice plus 150 cash. It would have been an especially good one because I had a ton of comments telling me I was an idiot for considering betting the Rockies, so those cashes always taste better. But like most of my bets did last night, it shit the bed. So we got Kyle Freeland pitching here, and look how this dude has been performing on the road. Check this out. In his last 6 road starts, he's 0-6. 0-6 in his last 6 road starts. 7.03 ERA, a 6.65 FIP. Just wow. Definitely tough to get behind backing Kyle Freeland right now, looking at numbers like that on the road. So it should just be an auto fade. I mean, the Reds have won, 9 straight now. Seeing those Kyle Freeland road numbers. I'm a little hesitant because look at the Reds' recent numbers against lefties. Yes, they're scorching hot. Yes, they've won 9 in a row. And I've cashed bets on most of those. For some reason, I deboarded the Reds train last night, but I've been betting the Reds nonstop for a while. But look at these Cincinnati numbers against lefties recently. They're really not that impressive. In the last 14 days, they're 23rd in WRC plus, 21st in OPS. I don't know if I want to lay minus 165, minus 170 juice against the lefty when this team's not really hitting lefties. Reds got Ben Lively on the bump, and I like Ben Lively. I've cashed several bets backing Ben Lively this year. But if you lay his starts out on a graph like this, you can see his production in the last 5 starts trending in the wrong direction. Definitely not really up to par with his first 3 starts. In fact, there's a couple really, really bad starts in there recently. See what happens when you put the numbers next to each other like this. We're looking at night and day. His first 5 starts, a 1.99 ERA, 3.54 FIP, and an 0.93 WHIP. Then you look at his last 3 starts, 6.52 ERA, 1.55 WHIP, and a 5.81 FIP. Wow. So definitely a huge drop-off in production for Ben Lively. But there's some good news for Ben. He's in a favorable spot. He's at home pitching against the Rockies lineup. Here are the Rockies numbers against right-handed pitching recently. And remember, when you're dealing with the Rockies, you have to pay close attention to that WRC plus number because their offensive numbers are always going to be inflated playing in Coors Field. So yeah, their OPS and slugging percentage, they're always going to look really good. They play a shitload of games in Coors Field. You see all the way down in 21st in WRC plus. This has not been a good lineup against right-handed pitching. They were early in the season, not recently. And these are the numbers from the last 30 days. Watch what happens to the numbers if I switch it from the last 30 days to the last 7. Yeah, this is not a good line. This is not a lineup you can back right now. With neither of these bullpens looking great recently, I think the best way to go is just hit the over up at 9.5. It's really the only bet I could see myself making in this one, especially with the Reds sitting at minus 170 price tag. That's just too much. I'll take the over at 9.5 next game. Oakland at Cleveland. Big Ken's on the mound. Big Ken. Ken Waldichuk. He's pitching against Aaron Savale. Cleveland opens up as heavy favorites, obviously minus 265. Total opens up at 9. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and of course, we're looking at a heavy lean on Cleveland. 5-2 Guardians after 5 innings. Final score 7-4 Guardians. I'm going to pass on this one for now. I might have a bet on this one in the morning. There's a couple props I might like, but as of right now, I'm passing. That Oakland offensive outburst, that seems to be done. They've lost 5 in a row now. And with Big Ken on the mound, sure, I like Cleveland to win the game, but do we really want to lay a 1.5 with that big price tag with Aaron Savale on the mound, a lefty? I don't know if I can get there. So I'll skip for now. I might have a bet on the live show at 4 p.m. Next game. Boston at Minnesota. Cutter Crawford's on the mound pitching against Bailey Ober. Twins open up as significant favorites here, minus 155, and the total opens up at 8.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we're looking at a 2-2 tie after 5 innings. Final score 4-3 Minnesota. I'm sorry to skip 2 in a row, but I'm going to skip this one for now too. I really want to see what the line does here. Obviously Boston's hot, and I don't want to fade him again. I made that mistake last night. But Cutter Crawford, I don't know if I could get there with him. And Bailey Ober's having a really good season. I want to see what the line does. I might have a pick for this one on the live show, or I might just skip it. Next game. Mets at Astros. Justin Verlander pitching against Framber Valdez. What a pitching matchup here. Houston opens up as solid favorites here, minus 150. Total opens up down at 7.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we got a solid lean on the Stros. 3-1 Astros after 5 innings. Final score 5-3 Astros. Let me ask you something. Is there a more difficult pitcher in baseball to read than Justin Verlander right now? I mean, look at the roller coaster ride that is his 8 starts this year. I mean, he has been elite, and he has been absolutely dreadful. This chart is crazy looking. It's been quite literally a roller coaster. So does the trend continue here? I mean, he's coming off a good start. If the pattern continues, that means he should get rocked in this one. If it was a month ago, I would say definitely yes. But this Houston lineup, I mean, these bats have cooled off in a huge way. Over the last 2 weeks against right-handed pitching, Houston's 20th in WRC+, 20th in OPS, and 22nd in average. This was a team that literally 4 or 5 weeks ago was one of the best lineups in baseball against right-handed pitching, so they truly have cooled off. On the other side, you got Framber Valdez, and this man has turned on the Jets since May began. Over his last 8 starts, I don't know if you can find a better pitcher in baseball. 2.08 ERA, 2.41 WOBA, 2.35 FIP. He has truly been as good as advertised, and now he's facing a Mets lineup that he dominated at Citi Field last year. He went into Citi Field and threw 8 shutout innings. That being said, this year's Mets lineup is not nearly as bad against lefties as last year was. In fact, over the last 30 days, the Mets are 7th in WRC+, 4th in isolated power, and 7th in OPS. Would have never guessed that. Mets actually have some nice-looking numbers against left-handed pitching, but it's hard to think that Framber Valdez and the Astros aren't going to come out super motivated for this game. I mean, not only are they trying to avoid their 6th straight loss, 6th, but you got Framber Valdez on the mound pitching against Verlander, their former ace. I mean, it's hard to imagine Framber and the Astros not being completely fired up for this one. Maybe I'm trying to catch a falling knife here going back to the Astros. I did bet them last night and lose. But I just refuse to bet the Astros to lose 6 straight. I can't. So at a minus 130 price tag, I'm going to take it. I'll take the Astros money line next game. D-backs on the road in Milwaukee again. You got Ryan Nelson pitching against Colin Ray. Milwaukee opens up as minus 130 favorites, and I have the same reaction to this one as I did to last night's game. What the hell is that line? Total opens up at 9.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we got to lean on Arizona. 4-3 D-backs after 5 innings. Final score 6-5 D-backs. I don't know if the odds makers started smoking dust, but why do they keep giving us Arizona at plus money? I mean, my favorite bet last night was Arizona at plus 108. Well, it was one of my favorite bets. I liked Arizona and the Giants about equally. That cashed easily. Now, I know Ryan Nelson certainly isn't Merrill Kelly, but he's been so much better on the road, and he's on the road here. At home this year, he's got a 7.09 ERA and a 1.81 whip, 5.23 FIP. Certainly had his problems at home in Arizona, but on the road, those numbers turn to a 3.09 ERA, 1.19 whip, and a 3.99 FIP. He's been solid on the road this year, and he's got some more splits working into his favor here. He's got nice-looking numbers against right-handed bats. The Brewers regularly start 6 righties in their lineup. Against righties on the road, Ryan Nelson's rocking a 268 WOBA, 091 whip, and a 328 FIP. Really impressive-looking numbers. Not to mention the Brewers' bats have been dead for months now, pretty much this whole season, you could say. I think there's a good chance Ryan Nelson throws a great game here. But even if you don't think Ryan Nelson's going to throw a good game, so let's say you don't believe in Ryan Nelson, you don't really like home-away splits, whatever. Even if you think he's going to get hit, the Brewers are still going to have to play catch-up with these Arizona bats because the D-backs bats are crazy right now, and Colin Ray's on the mound. I mean, at home against left-handed bats is by far his worst split. 369 WOBA, 3.2 home runs per 9, and a 735 FIP. So he's been terrible at home against lefties, and now he's going to see at least 6 lefties in the lineup for Arizona. Corbin Burns, he dominates left-handed bats. They just lit him up for 7 runs in 5 innings. Arizona bats are simply on one right now. I don't know how you could fade this team. In the last 2 weeks, they're 3rd in WRC+, 2nd in WOBA, 3rd in isolated power, and they've had a tough schedule too, and they're still putting up these numbers. I think the D-backs are as hot as it gets in baseball right now, truly. And when it comes to bullpens, I still would give the edge to Arizona. I mean, neither of these bullpens have been particularly good, but if you just put their production up next to each other, you'd have to give the edge to the D-backs again. So I don't care how square it is. I know it seems like we're walking into a trap again. But they pulled through in a big way for me last night. I'm going right back to them. Arizona money line next game. Rangers at White Sox, and we got Nathan Eovaldi pitching against Dylan Cease. Rangers open up as minus 120 favorites here. Total opens up at 8. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. We're looking at a nice little lean on Texas here. 3-1 Rangers after 5 innings. Final score 4-2 Rangers. So at first glance, you'd think this would be an open and shut case for Texas, right? I mean, Eovaldi's been an absolute monster. He's outperformed Dylan Cease by light years this year. Rangers just beat him last night. You think Rangers at minus 120, no-brainer. But when you take a deeper look at this game, it gets interesting. There's a few things working for Chicago here. First one being, okay, Eovaldi's red hot. No doubt about it. He's been a monster. but he's looked a little more vulnerable in his last 2 starts. In the 7 starts before his last 2, he had an 0.68 ERA, a 192 WOBA, and a 259 FIP. Unreal numbers. His last 2 starts, 4.73 ERA, 352 WOBA, 2 home runs per 9, and a 530 FIP. Definitely a bit of a drop off in production there. To be fair to Eovaldi, though, it was against the Angels and Tampa, 2 offenses that really crush right-handed pitching. This is the White Sox, one of the worst lineups in baseball against righties. So Eovaldi should just snap right back into his normal self that we've seen for the last 2 months and dominate him, right? Well, hold on, because he's actually really struggled against this team. Through 54 plate appearances, the White Sox owned a combined 326 batting average, 969 OPS, and a 0 strikeout to walk percentage versus Nathan Eovaldi. In Eovaldi's last 3 starts against the White Sox, he's 1-2 with a 6.75 ERA and a 158 FIP. Could these dog shit White Sox bats actually be a bad spot for Eovaldi? And then on the other side, you got Dylan Cease, who looks all the way back out of nowhere. If you look at his chart here, these are his last 10 starts. He was a shell of his former self for majority of this season, but look at his last 3 starts. A 2.16 ERA, 252 WOBA, 34.8 strikeout percentage, 2.78 FIP. I mean, these are the Dylan Cease numbers we were expecting to see, or at least some people were expecting to see. And while on paper, the Rangers are a nightmare matchup for Dylan Cease, he has dominated this team, the complete opposite of the situation of Eovaldi. Through 51 plate appearances, the Rangers combined are hitting just 116 off Cease with a 371 OPS and just 1 career RBI off Dylan Cease. In his last 2 starts against Texas, Dylan Cease threw 11 innings of 1-run baseball and 15 Ks. I mean, he has owned this team. Really tough to call this one because common sense says bet the Rangers, but the deep dive says bet the White Sox. I don't know if I can go back to the White Sox. They just burnt us last night, but I'm going to say White Sox or pass. I'll let you know what I definitely do on the live show tomorrow. Next game, Padres at Giants. Anthony DeSclafani pitching against Seth Lugo. Seth Lugo's back from injury. Good to see. No line open for this one yet. This game just ended about 20 minutes ago, so I'm sure there'll be a line open soon. I definitely want to bet this game, so I'll give a bet out on the live show at 4 p.m. Next game, Dodgers at Angels. Battle of LA here. Clayton Kershaw pitching against Reed Detmers. Dodgers open up as -130 favorites. Total opens up at 8. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we're looking at 4-3 Dodgers after 5 innings. Final score 6-5 Dodgers. So what the hell is going on with the Dodgers right now? I mean, they're just 4-10 in the last 14 games. During the span, the Dodgers offense hits 21st in WRC+, 24th in isolated power, and 26th in average. They're averaging just 4.4 runs a game, which is a whole 1.1 runs lower than their season average of 5.5. So it's got to be the bats that are causing these issues, right? That's why they've been losing games. Well, not exactly. Their bullpen has been terrible, absolutely awful. During this cold streak that they're on, the bullpen's sitting at 29th in ERA, 29th in WOBA, 20th in FIP. The combination of the bats going south and the bullpen being absolutely terrible, it just continues to sink this Dodgers team. And now we're looking at a Clayton Kershaw start on the road, a spot he's been much more vulnerable this season. So should we just stop right here and take the plus money with the Angels? Well, hold on, because there's a lot of underlying numbers that point towards to a Dodgers bet here. First of all, Kershaw may be worse on the road, but he's certainly not worse at Angels Stadium. He's been nothing short of immaculate against the Angels on the road here. In his last 5 starts in this ballpark, he's 5-0 with an insane 0.53 ERA, 0.53 WHIP, and a 31% strikeout rate. Holy shit. The current Angels lineup, check this out. So all the Angels bats combined are a lifetime hitting just 120 off Kershaw, 440 OPS, and a 31.8% strikeout rate through 110 plate appearances. And while the Angels were complete lefty killers to start the season, they've cooled off a bit in that department. They're just 16th in WRC+, 24th in average, 17th in OPS over the last 14 days. The last 5 lefty starters to face the Angels, 26 innings pitched, 1.73 ERA, and a 1.38 WHIP. So the Angels are not hitting left-handed pitching like they were earlier in the season at all. On the other side is Reed Detmers, and again, you might be looking at the Dodgers' recent offensive numbers and saying, hey, Reed Detmers might be able to pitch well at home here. I don't know about that, because in his last 2 starts against the Dodgers, he got rocked. He's 0-2 with a 9.35 ERA, 3.1 home runs per 9, and a 1.85 WHIP. Truly terrible. And despite the Dodgers going through a slump, one thing they're not slumping, they're still seeing lefties fine. They're still a top 10 offense against lefties, even during this cold streak. I mean, 8th in WRC+, tied for 3rd in isolated power, 6th in OPS. Over the last 30 days, they pretty much are top 5 in every offensive category against left-handed pitching. Coming off an embarrassing sweep from their division rival, the Giants, I think this is a great spot for the Dodgers. I know the bullpen's definitely a concern, but if the bats get going off Detmers like I think they will, I think they really should cruise to an easy win here. So I like Dodgers -1.5 at +115. I also would look at Dodgers first 5 -1/2 run at -110. In fact, I might put a half unit on both. I really do like the spot for the Dodgers. If anything changes with any of these bets, I will let you know on Twitter, so give me a follow there if you're interested. Like I said, we'll go through all 15 games on the live show at 4 p.m. I know Toast is going to join. Might get someone else to join too. We'll see. We're going to go through all 15 games, cover the line movement, final picks like we always do. So if you're able to make it, hope to see you in the comments. Also, if you want the final tickets that I post, which has my favorite bets on it, parlay of the day, that kind of stuff, head over to KyleKirms.com. All right, let's bounce back from that Monday. That Giants win really made me feel better. Really put me back in a positive light. Tuesday's a great baseball day. Always have a ton of fun betting baseball Tuesdays. Let's get into the green. Let's have a bounce back day. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you on Twitter.